Now before we get into the video, I do want to say a massive thank you to today's video sponsors, and once again that is jerseyfifa.com. They really do help keep the content on this channel going, and they even sent me a free shirt which you can see on screen here. And as you can see, I got the new Manchester United home kit, and genuinely the kit really is top quality. I highly recommend their product. So make sure to get in a link in the description down below, and now if you use code JerseyFifa at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. You get a great football shirt, and you help support the channel, which I really do appreciate massively.
Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel and the Scouting for Manchester United series. As you know by now, the series where we take a look at a load of different players around the world and discuss whether or not they should join Manchester United, looking at their attitude, when we can, their tactical role, their individual ability, injury records, things like that, and then we come to an agreement at the end of the video. We think they are this ranking on whether or not United should sign them. Today, Ismaël Bennacer, one of, if not my favourite player in the Serie A. 24 years old, soon to be 25 in December, from Algeria, currently playing for AC Milan. And actually the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that his contract runs out in June 2024. Now there were talks last summer that he was going to be signing a new contract, but that didn't happen. So, with his contract running out, not the summer coming up, but the one after, I think that kind of indicates that something could happen. If United were to approach AC Milan next summer, Bennacer would have 1 year left on his contract. So that's the sort of area where you can start picking up a player slightly cheaper than what they might typically be worth. And I think United could look to bring him in for around £30 to £40 million. But who is he? What sort of player is he? Well, for those that don't know, he is very much a midfielder. And when we look at just kind of his base FPRef report, we can see that he is very well rounded. He's ranking quite well in terms of shot creating actions in the 92nd percentile with 3.17 per 90 minutes. But it's really in this middle section and the bottom section where he impresses the most for me. Passes attempted, pass completion, progressive passes, progressive carries, dribbles completed where he is truly outstanding, but also pressures, tackles and interceptions. So a bit like when we were talking about Maxence Caqueret a few days ago, this is a very well-rounded midfielder who is very good on the ball, but also contributes a lot to his team out of possession as well. And that's why I like him. That's my ideal sort of midfielder for me, the sort of player that can pick up the ball and progress the play, but also help the team from a defensive point of view. And it just happens to be that is exactly what Manchester United need. Now, again, sorry to keep reminding you, we know United didn't get Frenkie de Jong last summer, instead they got Casemiro. Casemiro's been brilliant for Manchester United, but he isn't the press resistant and the deep progressor what United need. So United need to find him a partner to go alongside him. Could Bennacer be that? Well, if he was to come into a team, that is the position he would play. It would be in a double pivot in the 4-2-3-1 alongside Casemiro. Now, first things first, it isn't necessarily Bennacer's favourite role. At AC, he does tend to prefer to play on the right-hand side of the midfield too, but I really don't think it's much of an issue. I don't think for an intelligent player like Bennacer, moving to the other side isn't too much of an issue. And one thing that he would definitely bring is press resistance. So when United find themselves in situations like this, being heavily pressed high up the pitch, Bennacer is a player that is going to drastically help them with that. Now, currently Christian Eriksen is kind of tasked with that role at times. He's not very good at it. He is a good ball progressor, but he just isn't used to playing in areas this deep, and receiving the ball in a deep area near your own goal with the back to play is very different to receiving the ball in the middle of the third when you can open your body up a bit more. So Eriksen's kind of being asked to play a role that he isn't familiar with. That wouldn't be the case for Bennacer. This is where Bennacer is arguably at his best, and for me, I think he's one of the most press-resistant midfielders in Europe right now, which will be music to the ears of Manchester United fans who are watching this video, but also Ten Hag if he's watching. Hey Eric, keep up the good work. But yeah, that's the first thing that Bennacer would bring, incredible press resistance. We know that United are going to want to evolve to try and play their way out from the back through pressure. We're starting to see it more and more already against Spurs and Chelsea. Bennacer is that sort of midfielder. Bennacer is the sort of player that with either quick 1-2s with teammates in these areas, or just with his low centre of gravity. He is quite a short midfielder, but at times that helps him. Now, I'll come on to it later, how it could also be a disadvantage. But when he's on the ball, having this low centre of gravity allows him to turn just quicker than his opponents. So he's brilliant, he get real low, turn, and just sells his opponents a dream really often actually in these areas. Probably more than what you'd expect.
Before we continue with the video, I want to talk to you guys about today's video sponsor, anythingfootball.net. You'll be able to find the link to anythingfootball.net in the description down below. And as you scroll through the website, you will see how many great football boots they have from a load of different top brands. And honestly, some of these football boots are absolutely stunning. They're genuinely works of art. And I'll put some examples on screen here. You can see just how nice some of these boots are. They really, really are stunning. But if you want to check them out for yourself, then use the link in the description down below and head to anythingfootball.net. Now back to the video.
Of course, as I've said in the past in recent videos, if Manchester United are able to get better at playing their way through that first phase of press, then United are going to control more games, see more of the ball. And once again, this is an area where Bennacer will really look to contribute. Bennacer is a player that constantly wants to be on the ball. He is a real tempo setter, he helps his team control the game, dictates the tempo, and he can do it in a few different ways. So currently Manchester United build up in a 2-3 shape, with Dalot slightly more tucked in on the right hand side, more often than not, Shaw on the left, and it is this 2-3 shape. Where could Bennacer play in this? Well, typically when Bennacer plays in a 2-3, he prefers to be the solo pivot in the middle, the deepest midfielder, but Casemiro wants to play that role, so I think that's a little bit unlikely. The other role I do think he could play, and it's something I've spoken about a lot recently, is by pushing Luke Shaw up, allowing Rashford to come inside, and then having Bennacer drop to the left-hand side. I think this would probably be where he is most suited to the current system. However, Ten Hag is a flexible manager, and there is certainly potential to change the system. Because Bennacer, like several of these deeper United players, is quite comfortable in a few different areas. If you watched my recent video on AC Milan versus Chelsea, we saw Bennacer often dropping into centre-back even, which could give Lisandro Martinez more licence to push forward because we know how good he is on the ball. He's also happy to drop in and form a back three, which could allow Dalot to push forward, form this 3-1-6 sort of shape that we're seeing from some of the big teams this season, and also Casemiro could do that. Drop into the middle and have Bennacer in this area controlling. He is the sort of player that can really do this. He could be a player to sit deep for United in the midfield and really control the tempo, dictate the play, and set United moving from there. Whilst there are a few different options, and of course Ten Hag and Bennacer could change shape in-game, I think the most suited role would be kind of this narrow inside left position on the left of a 2-3, because I think this really works with his skill set as a player. So let's talk about what his skill set is. So we've already spoken about his ability to keep the ball for his side. We know he can do that and he can be quite safe in possession. But I think the good thing about playing on the left-hand side here, rather than playing as the solo pivot, is that he would also occasionally be able to push forward. We could see Shaw drop deeper, Rashford move wider, and then Bennacer move forward. And if we go back to his FBref report, which we were looking at earlier, in terms of expected goals assisted and shot-creating actions, he's ranking pretty well. And he also has 1.5 key passes per 90 over the past 365 days, which is very decent. Is it as creative as Christian Eriksen? No, not quite. Eriksen ranks about 0.8 higher than that per 90 minutes. But in terms of if we're talking about United wanted Frenkie de Jong, Ten Hag wanted Frenkie de Jong, Bennacer averages more key passes per 90 minutes. So that could be a good sign, something that plays into his favour. Of course, the other important thing is that if he is playing in this deeper area as part of the base where United build possession from, he just has to be able to get the ball moving forward. Lisandro Martinez is very good at it, Dalot is good at it, Casemiro is pretty decent at it. United need a very, very good midfielder to do it alongside Casemiro. Bennacer is that man. He is very good at playing the ball forward through the lines. Those that watch AC Milan will know that he picks the ball up in these areas on an extremely regular basis. So that is something that he would bring to United, the ability to break the lines. It just dawned on me that there's a chance not everyone knows what I mean when I say break the lines, so I just want to quickly describe it. What we can see quite clearly is the team in white here, we've kind of put them in a 4-1-4-1 formation here. We can see that they have a clear defensive line across the pitch. A player who is safe on the ball and plays sideways just kind of plays a 1-2 with Casemiro here or goes backwards to Lisandro Martinez. A line breaker has an ability to take multiple opposition players out of the game. And Bennacer is the sort of player that can do that. Playing one straight pass through the lines into the feet of Marcus Rashford. It is through this line of the opposition's midfield. And in doing so, you take a lot of players out of the game. Now, of course, there would then be a back four here or whatever. But we're talking about breaking the line, getting the ball moving forward. That is certainly something that Bennacer offers. As well as progressing the ball through the lines, Bennacer likes to attempt a lot of long passes as well. And I say attempt a lot of long passes because they don't necessarily always come off. But his pass completion is still pretty decent. But in terms of if we're comparing him to some of the best, Toni Kroos is probably the best long passer in the world. We can often see him hit 15 long passes and he probably completes 14, if not 15 of them. Bennacer is more around that kind of 10 out of 15 sort of area. So he isn't an elite central midfielder at this moment of time in his career, but the base is there for him to become that, in my opinion. And that's why I think this signing could be a little bit risky, because some of it is on his potential, his ceiling, what he can go on to achieve. But just from what I've seen, and this is my opinion, I think there's a lot there to suggest that he can be what Manchester United want him to be, sorry. He has that ability to switch to play with longer passes, he has that ability to play the ball through the lines, and as I want to look at now, he also has the ability to contribute a lot to his team from a defensive point of view. So of course, at the moment in the Manchester United team, Christian Eriksen is the player that is tasked with doing a lot of defending alongside Casemiro, breaking up counter-attacks, things like that. It's just not his game, we know that. Bennacer is much more suited to playing that role, and we can see, just quick glance here at his defensive FB ref report, he's ranking very well in a lot of metrics. Now, do I necessarily think he is a defensive midfielder? No, I think if he was the solo pivot, holding a team together, being the main defensive midfielder, I don't think that's his job. I don't think that's where he's best. However, playing alongside a player like Casemiro, who really does excel at that, added with the defensive ability of Bennacer, that could be a really nice defensive combo. We can see it here, 86th percentile for tackles, 87th for tackles won, 84th for tackles in his defensive third, 85th in the middle third, and the 55th in the attacking third. What I also like though is the pressures, the 80th percentile for pressures, and the 88th percentile for successful pressures, which is quite an important thing, because at times over the past few seasons at United, certain players, Bruno Fernandes, have pressed, so they've got a pressure, but they've pressed just in a silly way, with no real logic to the way that they're pressing, and been beaten. So the fact that Bennacer is effective with his pressing, completing a high number of his presses, is a good sign. As well as being a player that presses quite high up the pitch to try and help his team win the ball back nice and high, Bennacer is also a player that is quite smart with his reading of the game. He's always looking around at what's going on around him, different runs that the opponents are making, and also where his teammates are. Because at times, teammates get caught out, of course they do, especially fullbacks. Theo Hernandez at AC Milan often pushes extremely high up the pitch. Bennacer is a player that often slots in for his fullback, whether that's on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Is it exactly where he wants to be? No, but he has the work rate, the work ethic, and the mobility to get across into those positions, and then he is a pretty good 1-versus-1 defender. And he's also happy to take the tactical foul as well, which I think is important. And that is why I do think, again, this kind of inside left position could suit him quite well. We can see that this would mean Luke Shaw is playing higher up the pitch, so Bennacer's ability to cover this wide area, stop Lisandro Martinez getting exposed, is kind of starting to add up quite nicely. And now we're starting to see why I kind of like him so much as a footballer. However, as with any player, there are drawbacks, and at 5'7", it's not ideal. It's not the ideal height. I also think that the fact that he's nearly 25, it's still very young, of course, for a footballer. He's still a few years away from his prime, but I just think the level he's at for a 25-year-old just puts a slight question mark, because there are some very good 21 and 22-year-olds, as we'll look at over the course of the season. We've seen Caqueret already, Enzo Fernandez, players like that. So that's a little bit of a question mark. And the other big sticking point for any move here is his injury record. Now, Manchester United have had horrible luck with injuries over the past few seasons. Players like Phil Jones signed for the club and just barely played because they're constantly injured. Players like that. Bennacer is a player who, in the past 2 years, not even 2 years, it's just under 2 years, has had a lot of injury troubles. And some of them are occurring. We're seeing a couple of instances of muscle fatigue in there. We're seeing a couple of ankle problems, foot surgery, things like that. A little bit concerning. Because if you're spending big money to bring a midfielder in to kind of really build a team around, and I think that is the sort of player that Bennacer is, playing in this role, you are building your team around him. He is your main ball progressor, but also your main player to get out of the press. Building a team around a player that is quite injury prone is a real sticking point. In terms of value, we spoke about that at the start. We spoke about at the bottom there how his contract runs out in a couple of years' time, about 19 months away. The injuries are the issue for me. In terms of tactically, I think he looks like quite a nice fit for how Erik ten Hag wants to play. Like I said, he does have that low centre of gravity in the midfield. He would be excellent at getting the ball under pressure, turning out of the press, also playing quick 1-2s to get out of the press. In sustained possession, he is very comfortable on the ball, wants to be involved. He can switch to play with his long passing. He can play passes through the lines. He does offer some creativity in the final third. Off the ball, very hard working, wins a lot of his duels, gets a lot of interceptions and tackles, covers a lot of ground, extremely hard working. The injuries is the big sticking point for me. I think if it weren't for the injuries, I would probably have this as an A signing, and I'd probably going United should go sign him. The injuries, though, I think is going to have to bring it down to a B again. We seem to be getting a lot of Bs at the moment, but granted he isn't missing a ton of games with these injuries. We've got an 11-game streak here and an 8-game streak. Apart from that, it's not too bad. But I just think if you play him for a month, and he's going to miss a week every month, over the course of the season, that's a lot of football he's missing. And I'm not sure the current United squad can afford that. I think United need perhaps a more reliable midfielder, which is really frustrating, because he is such a talented footballer, and I absolutely love watching him. There is so much to like about him. If you haven't seen him, make sure you watch some Serie A, using the OneFootball app. Of course, they have a free game every weekend. AC Milan will be there during the season, so make sure to watch them when you can. He is a really good footballer. He's just being halted by injuries a little bit. And it is a concern. Of course it is a concern. But should that stop the transfer happening? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Can Manchester United afford to sign a player who is a little bit injury prone? Or perhaps the best method actually is to kind of leave it till the end of the season, look at has he picked up any injuries this year, or is he now a bit better, and go from there. Because this season he hasn't been injured yet. Touch wood, hopefully he's okay. He had a fever, but apparently that kept him out for 0 days. Not sure how that works. Yeah, I think there's so much to like about him as a footballer. The injury thing is a problem though. So he's going to get a B rating from me. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. He's a wonderful player, got a lot of potential. Perhaps a slightly late flourisher compared to other footballers around the world at the moment. But still a lot of talent. And a reasonably good tactical fit for Erik ten Hag's team. So now's your turn. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know the next player you'd like to see in this series. And I'll see you in the next one.